Okay, here is another identity video. And this is one that, kind of like the last identity video, is a little bit more in-depth, a little bit more complicated. And I can say that without having solved it yet, just because of what I'm seeing. And one of the things that you're going to notice is that as you work through these, as you do more examples, as you kind of play with more ideas and kind of see what works and what doesn't, you're going to start to see patterns. And that's kind of the big things of patterns and relationships are really kind of the basics of trigonometry. So one of the things that I see here, so first off, I double checked. I again grabbed an old trigonometry book and plugged and went and found a bunch of examples, pulled this one out randomly, and I double checked. Okay, and I put in a couple of different values. I think I used pi over 6 and pi over, or 2 pi over 3 or something like that. And I looked to see that this side and this side are indeed equal at those. So I have a good idea that unless something really, really strange happens, this is an identity that's going to work. Okay? Now the next thing that I notice is that my left-hand side doesn't have anything that is really going to be easy to break down. Okay, so secant plus tangent is pretty much as basic as you can get. Now over here on my right-hand side, cosine of x over 1 minus sine of x, this looks like something that I can work with. Okay, so this is where I'm going to start, and I'm going to assume that, again, I'm going to end up looking like my left-hand side. So I'm going to focus on my right-hand side. So I'm going to start with cosine of x over 1 minus sine of x. Now again, I told you this is going to be one of those things that is probably the hardest thing in this class. It is easily the thing that takes the most time and the most effort to be able to do well. So I'm looking at this, and I notice that I'm eventually going to get a tangent out of this. And what it looks like I have right now is a cotangent kind of look. So one of the things that I'm going to notice is I'm going to need to eventually convert my bottom here to being a cosine. So what I'm going to start out with, and what I'm going to do, is I know that from factoring, to get a difference of squares, I can multiply by 1 plus sine of x. Now again, I'm just multiplying by 1, and because I'm just multiplying by 1, I'm allowed to do that. Because again, it doesn't change any identities if you think back to college algebra. Okay? Now again, the reason I'm doing this is because what's going to happen is I'm going to get a difference of squares out of this, which is going to help me then to go a little bit further. And again, I haven't solved this yet, so I don't know if this is one of those things I'm going to do and it's going to work, or if this is going to turn into a complete dead end. Okay, dead ends are to be expected. Sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. Again, I think it's going to work just because I have that tangent and this is going to give me what I want. So when I multiply this out, what I'm getting on the bottom, and the reason that I kind of wanted to do this, was 1 minus sine squared of x. And again, it's because I have my difference of squares factorization, which tells me I'm going to get 1 minus sine squared of x. Okay, now on the top, this is going to give me cosine of x plus cosine of x sine of x. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute down here. I have my my identity of this is going to be equal to cosine squared of x. So I'm going to rewrite this as my numerator is going to stay the same. So cosine of x plus cosine of x sine of x. And I replace my bottom with cosine squared of x. Okay, so the very first thing I did was I tried to do a difference of squares thing on the bottom because I knew I was going to need a cosine down here, and that's exactly what was going to happen. So now I can rewrite this as I'm going to break up break up my fraction into cosine of x divided by cosine squared of x plus cosine of x sine of x over cosine squared of x. Okay, so what this is going to give me is I know cosine divided by cosine squared is going to be 1 over cosine. And my cosine and cosine squared are going to cancel and give me plus sine over cosine. Then I pop in my identities, and what I get is secant of x plus tangent of x, which is exactly what I was looking for. Okay? So I used a little bit of my knowledge from my skills in algebra and my skills in pre-calculus, along with my knowledge of factoring, to be able to kind of find a back way in to find tangent. And that was the big reason that I kind of had a hint to do it this way, was I saw that tangent and I had a cosine over sine, and I knew that I needed a sine over cosine, so I looked at how I might be able to kind of factor this around or change things to be able to get that